Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Anese Cavanaugh wants to make you contagious. Today we'll find out why. Anese, welcome to our show.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Anese, when we hear the title of your book, Contagious You, it sounds like we're going to be in the medical world, or at least health or physical fitness. So tell us what that title refers to.
Sure, absolutely. So contagious, to me, it refers to how we show up in the world. It's I look at everything to the lens of what is the energy that we're putting out into the world? How is it that we make people feel? How do people, our vibration, our vibe, so to speak, what is it that we put out? Because whatever we're putting out, whatever my intentions, whatever my energy and my presence is, that in itself is communicating something to the people around me. And we tend to catch the emotions and the energetic intentions of the people around us. So that's what makes us contagious. And we can be contagious for good or for bad, or we can be just totally beige.
Okay, now we usually think of the contagious, that word seems to have a negative connotation, obviously, because, I'm contagious. It might be a cold, something mild, it might be a little rash, or it could be something very serious, of course. But now you've explained it to us. And and I will say, we've been doing our show 31 years. I don't think we've had anybody bring out that point. So I think you're going to give us some very interesting comments this evening and tell us what's going on when we, go through things.
Good.
You talk about doing culture as opposed to being it. What's the difference, and which one do we want?
Okay, great. Well, we want to do both of them. When I think about doing culture, so a lot of times, and I'm sure listeners, everyone can relate to this, a lot of times when we're in an organization, or we're even, when I think about culture, I talk about the culture as our organizational culture, our family culture, our community culture. There's a way that we can do it. So if you think about a company doing culture, an example of that is, team meetings, karaoke night, having free lunches, having, trust falls, like all these different things that a lot of organizations will think that if they do these activities, they will have a better culture. And those are all very important, and they can be incredibly valuable. However, I also think that there's an important component, which is being the culture. And being the culture is how every single person is showing up. What is the energy that I bring to what I do? What is the regard I bring to the people that I'm working with? And an example of this is if you think about, something as simple, Bill, as a feedback conversation. If my organization is making a big initiative around feedback and leadership skills and communication, and we all have great skills. I've got this beautiful feedback model. I've got this beautiful feedback to give you. But in that conversation for feedback, I come in, I start talking, and I'm doing every single thing right in terms of the actual doing, but underneath it, my way of being is not helpful. So maybe my way of being is I'm coming from a place of judgment, or I'm not present, or maybe I'm really, really exhausted. If my way of being, if my intentions towards you, if my energy that I'm bringing to that conversation and my presence is not supporting you in that conversation, I don't care how good my doing is, I'm leaving a huge amount of opportunity on the table, and I potentially am even making more damage than good in that conversation. So there's the doing, which would be the skills and the actual actions. However, the being and what I'm communicating through my presence and my intention, that is actually the thing that is making the most impact on the people that we work with.
So it's not enough just to kind of learn a list about this or have a cheat sheet. This has to be part of our personality. I guess it's like telling people not to smoke, and then they watch you go outside and smoke, and they're not going to really follow your advice.
Right. It's true. It's such a beautiful way to put it. It becomes a part of our way of being, a part of our personality. It's something, Bill, that is learnable, and it is a daily practice. So it's not like, a lot of times people will go and they'll do a bunch of leadership development, and they come back and they're like, okay, great, I've got all these skills. However, they're exhausted, their way of being is not great, they're totally burnt out, and their intentions aren't good. So now, again, it's like you just said, they just stepped outside and they're completely going against what they said was important to them. So the way of being is essential.
And I like the way you say it is kind of following up with that. You don't force this on other people. They actually have to catch it. It kind of exudes from the leader, I guess. Would that be correct?
Yes, that is correct. In my experience, none of this can be forced on anybody. I've been doing this for many, many years, and what I have found is that it's not something you can force on anyone. It's something that has to be an invitation. So the more that I practice what I call my IEP, my intentional energetic presence, the more I practice presence and being intentional and really being showing up in a way that is positively contagious, the more I show up that way, the more contagious that becomes, and the more likely people are going to be to step in and join me there. But if I sit there and I say, oh, Bill, you need to do this because you're negatively contagious, and you have to do this and you have to do that, that's not an invitation. That is projecting something on you. It's going to create more resistance. You're probably not going to want to step into that as much. However, if I can show up in a way that is curious and caring and more of an invitation, you're going to be more likely to meet me at that place, and then we can move forward together.
As I was reading your book, I was thinking, as a sports analogy, when we see the football team and they go in and they may be losing by 10 or 20 points at halftime, but the coach or whoever it is seems to say some magic words to them or have some new plans for them. And I guess he or she doesn't just force the issue and say, you have to go out there and win, but they actually tell them to move the position, change this, match up different players against other players, and also their own spirit, which always seems to be positive, it comes out. And if it's truthful, I guess the players pick up on that. And if it's not, they just say ho-hum and they go about and lose the game. So I guess we're using this in real life. Is that it?
Absolutely. And people feel like we feel our regard for each other. In that example, I love the sports metaphor because those players, the coach is telling them what to do and where to go and everything. However, there's a deeper thing that's happening, which is that the coach's intention for the players, the coach's intention, his or her belief in those players, his or her belief in their ability to do things, their care for those people, that is actually what those players are going to react to even more. So the skills that they're giving them and the direction is fantastic, and it's essential to playing the game well. However, that extra level of intention, energy, and presence that coach brings to those players, that's often what is going to be the game changer, and it's going to really take them over the edge.
Do people realize when they have a negative impact? I mean, in general, most people I talk to think they're the best plumber, the best teacher, the best architect, or at least a very good one. And they'll tell why someone else isn't doing it the right way, or they're old-fashioned, or they're not up to speed. But do people realize when they're conveying negativity, or do they just think they're above the group?
I think it's both. I think it's a little bit of both for both sides. What I find with this work is that 70% of it is in our awareness. So the minute I have awareness that I am having a negative impact, or I'm just simply not having the impact I want to have, the minute I have that awareness, I'm 70% there, because the other 30% becomes what I decide to do with it. So a lot of times people, to your point, will think that they're having a great impact and they're doing everything really, really well and everyone likes to work with them and they're the best, whatever. And if they take a moment to get really present and take a breath and to really reflect upon what's going on around them, the quality of their relationships, the quality of the results they're creating, the quality of whatever it is that they're making happen in their life, if they get really present to that, they will sometimes find that there are areas that they would like to be different, or that there are areas that are actually really not going that well. So if we're willing to tell ourselves the truth and get present to what's really real, we'll often find there's probably an area where I could be having more impact, where I could be doing a better job. And then that to me, Bill, that's the most exciting time to hit, because from there, I'm 70% aware that I'm not actually showing up 100% for myself or for my spouse or whatever. And now I have choice, which means I have power to start to do something differently. So, sometimes, there are those people who say, nope, I'm great, I don't need it. And a lot of times, in my experience, those are the people that actually need to look at this the most.
And right after we give our audience some information, I'm going to ask you to tell us about a gentleman you met named Max. But at this point in the show, I want to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Bill Horan, but the important person is our guest, Anese Cavanaugh. She's the author of Contagious You. And Anese, would you tell us, one, where we can get the book, Contagious You, and is there a website where we can get more information?
Absolutely. So you can get the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Porchlight, anywhere where books are sold. You can get that book, and then you can get more information on me at anesecavanaugh.com, and you can also get some really fun resources and tools at iep.io.
And that's all initials, iep.io. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And we'll give that information again later. Of course, if someone didn't get it down or you want to, just hold on. We'll give it to you again before the end of the show. Anese, in your book, you have an anecdote about a gentleman named Max. Do you want to tell us why you put him in the book?
Sure. Well, Max, I have such gratitude for Max, because Max was a very large part of why I decided to write this book next after my first book, which was called Contagious Culture. So Max, I was giving a talk at an event, and Max was a gentleman who was one of the core leaders in this organization. And after the talk, when I give my talks, Bill, I talk about creating a positively contagious culture. I talk about creating a culture of leadership and accountability and all these different things. And as you can imagine, I'm talking about some of the soft stuff, your intentions, your energy, and your presence, everything we've been talking about here with the being of culture and leadership versus the doing. So Max came up to me after an event, and, I remember I was talking to one of his staff, and he kind of cut in line and started talking, and he said, "Hey, Anese, I think this is all really great, and I'm really glad that you gave us, what we need to do and be to be a better culture, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, I really, really, really wanted to have the list. I wanted the culture change list. I wanted you to tell me exactly what to do to change my culture. I didn't want you to tell me who to be." And he gave me his card and he said, "Just send me the list." And I said something to the effect of, "Max, I can give you a list. However, that list of all those things to do is only going to be as good as the way that you show up when you're actually integrating that list into your organization." So he said, "Great, great, great." And he took off. And the person who I was talking to, Bill, said to me, she said, "Anese, of everybody in this organization who needed to hear your message about the being versus the doing, we were all hoping that Max would hear it. Max is the person that everyone in the organization keeps quitting. He's doing the things that, he has the culture nights, he has the team dinners, he has all that. However, his way of being and the way he shows up, it is the thing that actually most people are leaving because they don't feel safe working with him." So here was a really great human being, Bill, who his intention is positive. He's not trying to show up badly. However, he's so not aware of his impact that he's walking around looking for that external list to fix things, when really the biggest game changer for him would be to get present to how he's actually showing up with his staff. So that was one of the main reasons why I decided to go into Contagious You next, because I really wanted to speak to the Maxes of the world, but I also really wanted to speak to the people of the world who are really doing this work and trying to have even more of an impact, who are dealing with the Maxes. So that this whole book is devoted to helping people become more aware of their impact, and then also helping them learn how to navigate negative energy and toxicity in their organizations or in their lives in a way that helps everyone move forward together.
And you mentioned in the book, and I think this will take everybody by surprise as it did me, something like 51% of the employees are not engaged, meaning they don't have a great interest in work, and they're honestly probably looking outside their present employer for a job. And 50% who quit say it's the manager, someone like Max, that's the reason.
Yep.
And to a business, this is devastating, because if you're losing employees, you've got to spend time hiring. That's a whole other department. Some of them are going to be good hires, some of them aren't. And it's costly, it's disruptive, and I don't think there's anything good about losing an employee, except that it gives other people ideas that maybe they should jump ship too. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, gosh, yes, please. Thank you so much for bringing that up. So disengagement in our country, just in the United States alone, disengagement costs us $483 billion to $605 billion a year in lost productivity. And that's just with actively disengaged employees. And this is from Gallup research. I talk about this in the book more. The Gallup Institute, they looked at, they really go through and they look at what is the state of employee engagement. And as of 2016, they found that 33% of United States employees were engaged at work. What engaged means they like their job, they're coming to work, they're giving their best, thinking they're happy, right? So that's engaged. 51% are not engaged. So not engaged means that they're looking for another job, they're kind of like in and out, they're not giving 100%, they're just kind of like, okay, whatever, I have a job. But here was the thing that really, really blew me out of the water was that 16% are actively disengaged. Now, your 16% who are actively disengaged, those are the people that are actually coming to work and they're poisoning the well. They're trying to get other people to leave. They're talking bad about the culture. They're actually showing up in ways that are detrimental to your culture. So if you look at that, that's only 33% are engaged. That's a huge, huge number. And if you look at the cost of that with the $483 billion to $605, if you look at the reason for lost productivity and disengagement, it usually boils down to a lot of what we're talking about here. We're talking about trust, safety, autonomy. We're talking about the level of presence that we have with each other. We're talking about the being of leadership that actually creates this disconnect in human beings where we no longer want to work together. So they're doing a lot of those companies. It was ironic. When I was doing my research, I found that, it's costing us that much. The amount of money that we actually spend as a country to address it is around $70 billion. So it's $70 billion versus $600 billion. It's a big difference. We spend about $70 billion to address it, but that $70 billion that we're spending is in skills building. So we're missing a huge opportunity to really look at what is the way of being, what are the intentions, energy, and presence of every human being in my organization, and how am I as leader, because I'm the only one I can control. I can't control anybody else. So how am I showing up and contributing to things either going better or worse in my organization? And that's where it has to start.
Is this somewhat of a popularity contest? So someone like Max, who may come across and say to you, look, I don't care if people like me. I want them to respect me and move this company ahead. Is it to be popular with them and at least have the crew like you, or are there other factors that go into this contagious outlook?
Well, when someone like Max comes to me and says, hey, look, I don't care if people like me or, like, this is how I am and I just want to move the company ahead. The question I always ask them, Bill, is I want you to really stop for a second and think about, are you having the impact you want to have? And are people following you because they want to or because they have to? Because the thing is that, I've had people literally come to me like Max afterwards and say, Anese, you talk about authenticity and how important that is. Well, guess what? I'm an authentic jerk. The way that I lead in a way, like I literally had a person tell me once that they threw phones at their people and that worked for him and his company because people were terrified of him. And so therefore, as long as they were scared, they did their job. Well, what that leader is missing, and that is an extreme example. It's a true story, very, very extreme. It's only one person I've ever run into like that. But what that person is missing is that those people are coming to their job because they have to. They are coming for a paycheck. They're coming because they're scared. They're coming for survival. They're not coming to that job because they want to. And if they're not coming because they want to, that means that organization, that leader is leaving a ton of good thinking and creativity and innovation and just really good culture that could make that company go so much further. So to me, it's never about popularity or unpopular or anything like that. It's really looking at what is it that I am bringing to the table and how do I make people feel? And if I am making them feel any way except for safe and creative and inspired and compelled to be here and really give their best thinking, then there's a blind spot that I have as a leader, and there's a huge opportunity for me to step up my game.
Now, Anese, I think it's on around page 19 or 20 in your book, you actually have a list of what we can do to upgrade our results and our contagiousness factor. Can you take us through those? Because now we're listening to you. We're hearing about it. We're a little scared that our employees, if we have a 10-person company, 5 of them may be jumping ship, and there's another one there who doesn't care. So we only have 4 good workers. So what should we look at? What can we ask ourselves?
It's terrifying when you put it that way, Bill.
It is. I'm doing the math quickly here, and it's scary. Everybody's jumping off the ship, and the ones who are left are probably the ones we don't want.
Oh gosh, it's possible. Gosh, now I'm doing the numbers in my head for my company. All right. So there's a way that the way that I've addressed this is I've created what I call the IEP method. IEP stands for your intentional energetic presence, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's being intentional about the energetic presence you bring to anything you do. Having a conversation with your employee, doing your dishes, having a conversation with your child. So it's just being intentional about how you're showing up. As I said earlier, once you've got awareness there, you're 70% of the way there. Awareness is power. So there's 3 parts of the IEP methodology. The first is your ability to reboot your presence in the moment, which we can do just like this. Like right now, you and I reboot our presence. We're back. We're present. Here we are. First, reboot your presence. The second part is to build a strong energetic foundation and field, which has everything to do with self-care, your thinking, who you hang out with, your actual presence. I talk about these deeply in the book. The third part is to build intentional impact. So those are the 3 core parts of the method. Now, on page 19, I actually give you quick starting points to really upgrade that contagiousness. And the questions I ask, or the questions I offer, is the first one is, what experience do I want to create right now? So in any moment, everyone listening to this, you're going in, whether you are the CEO of your organization or you are an administrative or entry-level employee, or you're a stay-at-home parent, it does not matter. You want to look at, what experience do I want to create? And this can be on a project, this can be in a conversation, this could be during your workout, this could be for anything. The next thing you want to ask after that is why? Like, why do I want to create this experience? What's important about it to me? And what and whom does it serve? So that's your first chunk of questions to just put into inquiry. Once you've got that, you're now connecting with intention and what you want to create. And once we have our intention built, everything else gets easier. So the next question is to then do a check around how I'm showing up. So my question is going to be, how am I showing up? And are my intentions, energy, and presence supporting the desired experience I want to create? So I want to get really clear, and I want to be honest about that, because I might want to create a really great experience with this employee that I'm going to give feedback to. But if I'm coming into that conversation and I'm exhausted because I didn't sleep last night, or I haven't given myself 5 minutes to reboot, or maybe I'm in a state of judgment because I'm really frustrated I have to give this employee feedback. If I'm coming with that energy and I'm showing up that way, I'm not going to create the experience I want to create with that person. So I want to get really clear about how I'm showing up and if my IEP is in alignment. And then the last thing you can ask yourself, this is just a quick hit, is, what's the littlest or biggest thing I can do to shift things in the right direction? So in that moment, what's the littlest or biggest thing I can do? And this could be, a small tweak in my presence. It could be just reconnecting to my intention. This might be, in the case of that employee, it might be just remembering, you know what, actually, this is a human being that I'm responsible for leading, so I actually really do want to serve this person. So my intention might just become about service. This could be about breathing in the moment. A lot of times the breath, we forget to breathe, and our breath is the quickest thing to get us present and to shift our state. So it could be a breath, it could be a decision, it could be anything. But the important thing is that we get present to what's the littlest thing I can do right now to start to shift this in the right direction. And the minute those 3 questions together, Bill, to me, they're kind of a magical trifecta.
Now, Anese, before we go further, I'd like to let our audience know, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Our wonderful guest today is Anese Cavanaugh, and she's telling us about her book, Contagious You. And now she's going to tell us if there's a website we should know about and where we can get the book.
All right. So again, website is anesecavanaugh.com. You can also go to iep.io to get extra resources and goodies that we just put out into the world, because we want people practicing this work and creating more of the impact they want to create. And you can get the book on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, Porchlight, anywhere where books are sold. Any retailers will have it.
And Anese, we want our audience to know, if you missed part of the show or you want to hear it again or recommend it to coworkers, friends, you can go to nccradio.org. That's nccradio.org. Just look for the podcast of The Secrets of Success. It's free. You go down there, look for Contagious You, and you can replay the whole show. Relatives, friends who are in other states, other countries can listen to it, and we have many people doing that. So if you're enjoying this, it's an easy way and a very inexpensive way to save yourself a lot of money with a company. And again, I think even more so in a small dental office or accounting office, law office, medical, whatever. It doesn't have to be a 5,000 person company. As we said before, if you have 10 employees and you're losing 3 or 4 of them and 1 or 2 aren't really producing, you're heading for disaster. It's really more pointed to you than to anyone else. Anese, tell us about a story. We talked before the show about a fellow named Matt, and you relayed his story to us. So can you tell us that anecdote?
Oh, sure. Okay, so Matt is another one of my favorite people. He came to this work. He was a director in his company, and he really wanted to grow and get a promotion. And the company actually brought me in to help him. There was a really lovely firm, and they were very invested in him. The thing with Matt was very, very brilliant. He had a great heart, great credentials, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he couldn't figure out why he wasn't getting ahead. And, and I talk about this, I think this is around page 59, the credibility and success chapter, Bill. But basically what it boiled down to for Matt was coming into work, and we would meet. The big clue for me was we would meet on Tuesdays. I remember our meetings were always on Tuesdays at 10 o'clock. And a lot of times he would show up at Tuesday at 10 o'clock and he'd be super exhausted. Tuesday, 10 o'clock in the morning, be wiped out. And I'd say, Matt, what's going on with you? And Matt would go, oh, gosh, Nisha, I had a really big weekend. We had a barbecue. I had all these beers and this, beautiful hot dogs and all this stuff. And I'm still kind of recovering from my weekend. And it'd be Tuesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so we started to realize, I would say to Matt, Matt, is that hot dog and that beer and everything, is that worth your promotion? Is it worth your career and the impact that you're trying to create on your wife, your kids, like the whole thing? And so he started to realize that his energy management, the way he was taking care of himself, the way he was thinking about things, the way he was not being intentional, at the beginning of his days because he was too tired and he was just kind of catching up all the time, that was having a huge impact on his energetic presence and how he was showing up with people, because people were experiencing him as kind of like tired and foggy and just not fully crisp, which has a major impact on leadership. So that was one. The other thing was he was using a lot of what I think of as like soft language, so he was using a lot of words like can't, try, they, busy, not in control, not in my control, I'm sorry, I hope, like a lot of words that we call them like wimpy words. And an example, the opposite of that would be, you turn try into I will, you turn can't into I won't, you turn they into me, like really looking at what words are ownership words and what words are authorship words versus which words are victim words. So all those words I just used, can't, try, they, busy, not in my control, I hope, those can all be categorized as victim words or at the effective words versus words that are more authorship words, like, instead of busy, for example, he started using words like, I'm choosing not to do this, or this doesn't fit with my bandwidth, or this is not something I will do right now. However, I will get to it next week. Or he would say, one of my favorites personally is I'm richly scheduled. And so he just started to notice what language he was using and what the effect was that it had on people. And if anybody listening to this, you start to pay attention to the words that you use and you pay attention to the words that other people use, you will start to notice that there are words that will make you contract and feel kind of tired and small. And then there are words that are really powerful that create more of a bridge of positive and productive communication into your next step. So
Anese, I love that. I'm sorry to cut you short. We're just running out of time. But I think you make such great points. And I'm a person who, if I hear someone's words, just as you said, I pick up on that very much. And that will tell me whether they think they're going to get whatever they want, whether it's a sale or a victory or a winning court case, or if, as you said, they're a victim, and a lot of us do see ourselves as victims. Thanks so much for being with us today. Once again, I'd like to remind our audience, you've been listening to The Secrets of Success. Our guest today has been Anese Cavanaugh. She's the author of Contagious You. We ask you to please join us again next week at this same time when we'll continue our journey to success.